Friends, welcome back to this important lecture series of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, being organized by Indian Council of Agricultural Research. And this lecture series is being organized for a very important cause, which is a matter of proud for all of us, for all the Indians, that we are going to celebrate the 75 years of India's independence, which we are going to complete on 15th August 2022. And as you know, we have taken a lot of activities to celebrate this important event. One of them being to have this 75 lecture series. Till date, we have completed 65 lectures by eminent personalities. And those lectures have been not only in agricultural research, but also on policies, entrepreneurship, motivation, health, and many other. And the personalities included like C.C. Ravi Shankar, many ministers, and many international organizations, experts, and many other secretaries. They have delivered their talk on various topics on this platform. In the same series, today we have another personality, a well-known personality. As you know, the youngsters only can reshape the future of India. Like you must have seen the Ola, Uber, you must have seen the Oyo, all youngsters who have come out with a lot of initiatives, a lot of solutions. And in the same series, you can see the Policy Bazaar, which is one of the leading solution for integrating all the policies at one single platform. The man behind this, one of the co-founder, is among us today. We welcome you, Alokji, for having agreed to deliver your talk, having agreed to share your thoughts, your experiences, how from the scratch you have brought this Policy Bazaar and Paisa Bazaar to such a level. We are really thankful to you for coming today, and I'm sure that our students, our faculty, our policy makers, our vice chancellors who are attending this today from our system, they will be greatly benefited from your experience. So we are very eager to listen to you. I can just tell you, in many universities, people are connecting through the auditorium. So there is a one single ID, but hundreds of students, they are sitting in the halls. And this is also being live streamed. This becomes a repository for the students, our agribusiness students, our other faculty members, as a case study or as a success story, that how really our youngsters can come forward and take the big challenges for the betterment of our country. So friends, let me briefly introduce Mr. Alok Bansal, who is the co-founder and executive vice chairman of this Policy Bazaar Fintech Limited. Mr. Bansal is the executive vice chairman of this Policy Bazaar Fintech Limited that owns India's leading insurtech brand PolicyBazaar.com and leading lending marketplace PaisaBazaar.com. He leads the inorganic growth and investment opportunities for the company and the group as a whole, along with investor relations. Mr. Bansal has recently led the company to a very successful public listing and is now setting up the corporate development function for the group. According to him, the success of any business lies in working with a team with different mindsets. A great message for our youngsters, allowing them the flexibility and freedom to experiment, innovate, and contribute. Mr. Alok's core strength lie in strategic thinking, process control, and execution. Prior to joining PolicyBazaar.com, Mr. Alok has worked in various cross-functional roles with Mahindra & Mahindra and GE. He was recognized as one of the top 100 CFOs in the country by CFO India magazine in 2016. He holds an MBA degree from a very prestigious management institute that called IIM Calcutta, and spends free time reading or traveling. Mr. Alok has a special interest in science and technology and economic empowerment, education, and civil rights. Welcome back, Mr. Alok Bansalji, and we are eager to listen to you, and the floor is yours. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Agarwalji. First of all, it's my pleasure and an honor to be able to address such a wide audience and so many eminent people out here. And when you reached out to me asking that would I be, having time to deliver this talk, the first thought which came to my mind was that I don't know anything about agriculture or anything related to agriculture. And it was very kind of you to still invite me and deliver a talk to such a wide range of audience. So, we started this company in 2008, June 2008. So it's been more than 14 years now. So to some extent, even though media will still call us at startup, but it's been 14 years. You can see my white hair and my partner is bald. So it's taken a toll. But yeah, generally the way media looks at anything to do with digital, they call it a startup. In fact, I'll share a very good anecdote. In one of the talks recently, someone asked me, आप लोगों को 14 साल हो गए हैं, अभी भी स्टार्टअप बोलोगे, कब तक स्टार्टअप रहोगे? तो आई सेड, यार जब तक वी डोंट हैव अ फियर ऑफ फेलियर, वी आर स्टिल स्टार्टअप. जिस दिन दिल में डरा रहेगा ना, उस दिन हम स्टार्टअप नहीं है, तब तक तो स्टार्टअप है. सो टाइम लगा, and it's a long journey. It's gone through multiple ups and downs. None of the founding team members actually come from insurance background, or in fact finance services background. So we had to learn a lot. We were quite naive in that sense that we will ask stupid questions. So हम industry में जाते थे, regulator के पास जाते थे, and we will ask all sort of stupid questions, try to learn as much as possible. And we are blessed to have very good partners who supported us all through the journey. Eventually company बनी है, तो उसका रीजन ये है कि बहुत लोगों की बहुत blessing साथ में है. बहुत लोगों ने support किया before we deserve that support. So we are very, very thankful to all those people. So, when we think about startup, there are two ways broadly that I can figure out. One is people want to do a startup because they have something in their mind that they want to do something of their own, but they don't have the idea in place yet, and they keep on searching for the idea. And the second one is you first look at the idea and you say, okay, there is definitely something which needs to be done here, and should I take that jump? Now, I've seen both the approaches, and both the approaches work. So when, as students, you guys think of doing something of your own in any field, it may be related to what you are studying today. It may be related to something that you see in your social life, in your public life, with your friends. It's not that every time you need to have a very great idea from day one, but you need to definitely have identified gap in some value chain. Now, if you think that the gap is big enough and it's worth your time, you are still young people, and if you want to put next 5 years, 7 years, 10 years of your life doing something, it should be worthwhile. It should be a big enough problem to solve. So, I'll come into the story of how Policybazaar grew and what all the challenges we faced and how did we overcome some of them. But to be honest, we also made equal number of mistakes that anyone will do. When you take a decision, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in your organization, galtiyan to hongi. But I would only suggest two things to you as you build your careers. One, whenever you make a mistake, try to learn from it. And second, bad decisions se jaldi jaldi bahar aa jao. There is a concept called sunk cost. Jo ho gaya, wo ho gaya. You can't really go back in time, even 5 minutes, and change anything. So come out of bad decisions as quickly as possible. That will highlight your good decisions to everyone. And automatically you'll see that you end up going into the right direction. Now, before we come into Policybazaar, as I said, I'll explain a little bit about insurance, what we have seen over the last 14 years. It's a very unique product. See, we all know about the basic needs of humans, चाहे वो food है, water है, घर है, education है, health है. But insurance उससे बहुत दूर नहीं है, because insurance is something which is giving you a sort of comfort against the financial risk, which may come from the death, disease, or disability in the family. So it becomes very, very, very critical as part of your financial planning. It's all about buying a promise, because that paper which you get from the insurance company is nothing but a promise. Now, when you're buying a promise, you're getting into a contract. So कुछ यूनिक चीजें निकल के आती हैं. पहला, you also have to hold your side of the bargain. तो डेटा डिस्क्लोजर बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाता है. It's all about understanding the risk for the companies, so they would like to know more and more about you. But from customer perspective, you also need to have a trust कि अगर मैंने ठीक बताया है इंश्योरेंस कंपनी को सब कुछ, तो मुझे क्लेम मिलेगा. This is not a product where you get instant gratification. When you buy a mobile phone, when you buy a shoes online, आपको instant gratification मिल जाता है. 2 दिन में आपके घर सामान भी आ जाता है. But यहाँ पर what you get is just a promise, as I said. And incidentally, the best use case of this product is if you never use the product. तो बहुत ही odd category है. या अगर आप कभी यूज नहीं करेंगे तो बेस्ट है. प्लस इसमें आपको नेगेटिव इवेंट ऑफ लाइफ के बारे में सोचने को फोर्स किया जाता है. When you're talking about disease, when you're talking about death in the family, as a human being, we're not comfortable about these things. Plus, it will force you to think about these and research for half an hour, 1 hour. तो आदमी ना प्रोक्रेस्टिनेट करता रहेगा एंड दे विल से यार आज मेरे घर में कोई फंक्शन हो गया है, फिर कुछ फेस्टिवल आ गया है, लेट मी नॉट बाय टुडे. So this becomes a category which has these unique characteristics, because of which, for whatever reasons in India, it became a push category. So someone will come to you and get you to buy some product of insurance. As a consumer, you will never think about buying it on your own, usually. Now, when we started this company in 2008, we saw the same dynamics. We also saw that individually we have bought some policies, or our families have bought some policies in past, which were not really serving any purpose from protection perspective. They were either investments or they were compulsory products like car insurance. तो हम थोड़ा समझ नहीं पा रहे थे कि इंडिया जैसी कंट्री में जहाँ मिडिल क्लास इतनी बड़ी है और मिडिल क्लास के पास देयर इज नो ऑप्शन फ्रॉम द रिस्क व्हिच कम्स फ्रॉम फैमिली में कोई डेथ डिसेबिलिटी हो जाती है तो लोग क्यों नहीं खरीदते. तो वी वेंट लिटिल डीपर इनटू दिस एंड वी सॉ कि यार एक तरफ कस्टमर को ट्रस्ट नहीं है, दूसरी तरफ कंपनी का डेटा ठीक नहीं आता तो प्रोडक्ट नहीं बना पाते हैं, तो कहीं ना कहीं गैप काफी सारे हैं. So we started this company called Policybazaar, which is a marketplace. Now, what is a marketplace? Marketplace is nothing but a platform where you're connecting buyers and suppliers. It's like a physical market only, but हमारे केस में ये ऑनलाइन है. तो कस्टमर्स हमारे पास आते हैं, दूसरी तरफ हमने इंश्योरेंस कंपनी से टाइप्स कर रखे हैं, तो इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज के प्रोडक्ट हमारी वेबसाइट पे होते हैं. कस्टमर्स या तो हमारी हेल्प से या बिना हेल्प के दे कैन जस्ट गो अहेड एंड डू द ट्रांजैक्शन ऑन द वेबसाइट इटसेल्फ और ऐप. So that's why it's called a marketplace model. Now, digital का सबसे बड़ा फायदा क्या होता है कि you don't have to start with huge amount of investment, and that's why for someone like us who all come from middle class, it became a very good opportunity to start something online. We were also lucky that we were at the right time, right place in some form, because India में internet penetration improve हो रहा था बहुत तेजी से, mobile penetration improve हो रहा था, insurance sector itself was quite young at that time. From the public to private वाले शिफ्ट के लिए, बिकॉज 2001 में IRDAI बना था और उसके बाद से प्राइवेट कंपनी आनी शुरू हो गई थी. उससे पहले तो केवल LIC और गवर्नमेंट कंपनी हुआ करती थी. सो मल्टीपल थिंग्स वर्कड इन अवर फेवर इन सम फॉर्म. बट व्हेन यू स्टार्ट अ कंपनी, व्हाट इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग यू हैव टू कीप इन माइंड. आप लोगों ने शायद पढ़ा होगा, देयर इज समथिंग कॉल्ड वैल्यू प्रोपोजिशन. नाउ वैल्यू प्रोपोजिशन मींस कि व्हाट इज दैट वन रीजन जिसके कारण कस्टमर आपके पास आएगा. But that is alone not enough. What I want to convey is you should have a differentiated value proposition, because market may whatever offering you want to give, that offering is being given by a lot of other people. In our case, that offering is being given by agents, banks, brokers, insurance companies themselves. So why should anyone come to us and not go to them? So you have to have differentiation in the value proposition that you want to offer to the customers. Eventually, we exist because there is a customer who chooses to come to us. So we have to always put customer first in our thinking and say customer को क्या प्रॉब्लम आ रही है, हम उसमें क्या कर सकते हैं. जैसे जैसे आप ये वैल्यू प्रोपोजिशन के अंदर डीप जाएंगे, आप वैल्यू चेन समझना शुरू करेंगे, you will start to build moats around your business. Now ये moats कैसे होते हैं? ये moats इस टाइप के होते हैं कि आपको कोई कॉपी नहीं कर सकेगा एकदम से, एंट्री बैरियर बन जाएंगे. ये टेक्नोलॉजी ड्रिवन भी हो सकते हैं, ब्रांड ड्रिवन भी हो सकते हैं, आपकी टीम ड्रिवन भी हो सकते हैं, बहुत तरीके से हो सकते हैं. आज की तारीख में अगर हम देखें, अगर आप अपने यूसेज के हिसाब से भी सोचेंगे तो आपको बहुत चीजें ऐसी मिल जाएंगी जहां पर आप उस ब्रांड को ही वो कैटेगरी मानते हैं। बहुत बार आप शॉप पे जाके ये नहीं कहते रेजर दे दीजिए, आप ये कहते जिलेट दे दीजिए। जिलेट के अलावा कोई रेजर ऑप्शन ही नहीं पता होता है लोगों को। तो ये कैसे हुआ? ऐसे ही सर्फ का नाम जब आता है तो आप सर्फ मांगते हैं, आप ये नहीं मांगते कि मेरे को वॉशिंग पाउडर चाहिए। तो ये जो ब्रांड बनता है इसमें बहुत टाइम के साथ में जो एक अटैचमेंट आ जाता है कस्टमर का, और इसको कस्टमर के माइंड स्पेस को जो आप ले लेते हैं, ये एक लंबी जर्नी है। तो स्टार्ट करना पड़ेगा वैल्यू प्रोपोजिशन से, फिर आपको मोड्स पे काम करना पड़ेगा। मोड्स कैसे होंगे? तो हमारे केस में देखिए, वी हैव अ वैल्यू चेन। ना वैल्यू चेन हमारी कहाँ से स्टार्ट होती है? इंश्योरेंस प्रोडक्ट से स्टार्ट होती है, वेयर द इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज विल क्रिएट अ प्रोडक्ट। नाउ इट कैन बी लाइफ इंश्योरेंस, health insurance, motor insurance, whichever, but the product has to be created. Now, India is a large country, very, very diverse population. If you do not have specific customer segmentation, तो आप क्या करेंगे? आप इंडिया को सिंगल पूल ऑफ रिस्क की तरह देखेंगे। Now, anyone who thinks about India will say, यार इंडिया को सिंगल पूल ऑफ रिस्क की तरह कैसे देख सकते हैं? इंडिया इज सच अ डाइवर्स कंट्री। एवरी 50 किलोमीटर, एवरी 100 किलोमीटर मेडिकल हिस्ट्री बदल जाती है। आप लोग तो एग्रीकल्चर फील्ड में, आपको तो पता ही है कि हर जगह क्लाइमेट डिफरेंट है, हर जगह सॉइल डिफरेंट है, हर जगह जो फसल उगती है वो डिफरेंट है। तो ऐसे ही आदमी और फैमिलीज की हिस्ट्री बदल जाती है। तो वाई शुड कंपनीज क्रिएट अ प्रोडक्ट विच इज फिट फॉर ऑल इंडिया? ऐसा तो पॉसिबल ही नहीं है। लेकिन आज की तारीख में वही हो रहा है। तो प्रोडक्ट में इनोवेशन नहीं हो रही थी। देन वी सॉ द बाइंग प्रोसेस इटसेल्फ विद द सेकंड पार्ट ऑफ द वैल्यू चेन was broken and a lot of friction was there because it was dependent on offline processes. तो कस्टमर चाह के भी खुद नहीं कर सकता था। एंड लास्टली एज आई सेड, क्लेम्स फॉर अ ब्लैक बॉक्स, एंड लोगों को ट्रस्ट भी नहीं था और प्रोसेस कॉम्प्लिकेटेड भी बहुत है। तो हमने कहा ये तो अपॉर्चुनिटी डेफिनेटली बहुत बड़ी है, यहाँ पे तो हम कुछ कर सकते हैं। तो वी स्टार्टेड ऑफ विद trying to learn about the product first and trying to build connection with the insurance companies. As I said, क्योंकि हम इस बैकग्राउंड के नहीं थे, we didn't have any connects in the industry. It took us some years, but we had to survive. तो सर्वाइव कैसे किया हमने? फॉर सर्वाइवल वी स्टार्टेड एक्चुअली डूइंग लीड जनरेशन। तो हमने कस्टमर्स को एजुकेट करना शुरू कर दिया था बहुत जल्दी से। हमने बहुत सारा कंटेंट बनाया, दैट कंटेंट गॉट पब्लिश्ड। SEO में भी आने लगा हमारा कंटेंट। धीरे धीरे कस्टमर स्टार्टेड कम टू अस, बट वी कुड नॉट गिव देम अ पॉलिसी। सो व्हाट वी विल डू, we will give that inquiry of customer to the insurance company, and insurance company will close that transaction. We'll get some money for that transaction. तो उसको बोलते हैं लीड जनरेशन मॉडल। उससे हमें सर्वाइवल मिल गया थोड़ा साल का। जब तक हम IT इंटीग्रेशन कर रहे थे और इंडस्ट्री के बारे में और समझ रहे थे, कुछ साल हमने इस तरह से निकाल लिए। जैसे जैसे हमारा IT इंटीग्रेशन डीप हुए, हमने लीड जेन का काम बंद कर दिया। बिकॉज लीड जेन में देखिए प्रॉफिट और रेवेन्यू तो आ जाता है, बट क्वालिटी ऑफ बिजनेस नहीं आता है। और इंश्योरेंस कंपनी अगर मिस सेलिंग करेगी या इंश्योरेंस कंपनी अगर पुश करेगी कस्टमर को ज्यादा, तो हमारा ब्रांड खराब हो रहा था। तो एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज हमने सीखी इसमें कि रेवेन्यू इज नॉट इक्वल, रेवेन्यू की एक क्वालिटी होती है। तो लीड जनरेशन का जो रेवेन्यू है उसकी क्वालिटी बहुत अच्छी नहीं मानेंगे हम, बट जो सेल्स का रेवेन्यू है उसकी क्वालिटी बहुत अच्छी मानी जाएगी। तो हमने फिर सेल्स मॉडल बिल्ड किया जिसके लिए कस्टमर हमारी वेबसाइट पे आता था, but eventually customer will have to transfer to the insurance company website to close the transaction and make the payment. Again, broken journey thi, but that was also important while we were going deeper into the whole integrations. Around I think 2016-17 onwards हमने end to end integration कर लिए थे, जहां पर कस्टमर हमारी वेबसाइट पे end to end जर्नी करके पॉलिसी खरीद सकता था। तो जैसे आप एयर टिकट खरीदते हैं, मोबाइल फोन खरीदते हैं, कुछ भी खरीदते हैं, वैसे ही आप इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी खरीद सकते थे। इसमें कुछ कुछ अपने न्यूआंसेस हैं, बिकॉज आप कैंसिल नहीं कर सकते, रिफंड नहीं मिल सकता, एंडोर्समेंट आराम से नहीं हो सकते, लेकिन फिर भी कम से कम खरीद तो सकते थे। हम और डीप जाते गए, हमने बैकएंड सिस्टम इंटीग्रेट करने शुरू कर दिए हैं, जहाँ पे हम कुछ ये चीजें जो मैं बता रहा हूँ रिफंड की या एंडोर्समेंट्स की, यू कैन डू इवन दीज ऑनलाइन नाउ, बट नॉट फॉर एवरी कंपनी, नॉट फॉर एवरी प्रोडक्ट। इट्स अ जर्नी विच इज स्टिल कंटिन्यूइंग। एंड फिर हमने कहा कि यार चलिए अब बेसिक तो सेट हो गया है, but how do we actually start to have more impact on the industry? So I mentioned about three things, right? Product, buying process and the claims. तो हमने तीनों में फिर और डीप जाना शुरू कर दिया। तो on the product side, you know, मेरा बेस्ट एग्जांपल हमेशा होता है, मेरे दो को फाउंडर थे, वी हैड टू पीपल, यशीश दहिया एंड अवनीश निर्झर. Now, for a lot of people who belong to North India, they will know that both of these, they were Jats, and in North India, Jats actually thrive on either side of Yamuna. और हमारे केस में यही था. Yashish Dahiya is from Haryana and Avnish was from Uttar Pradesh, but their villages were barely 50 kilometers away. But completely different medical history. And it was very surprising. So when media used to talk to Yashish, ki, what plan do you have in insurance which can cover diabetes? He didn't even know diabetes होता क्या है. तो उसने अपने घर पे जाकर मम्मी से पूछा एक दिन कि ये होता क्या है. तो उनकी मम्मी का आंसर था, वो तुम्हें चिंता करने की जरूरत नहीं, वो नदी पार होता है. बिकॉज यूपी साइड पे वहाँ पे शुगर केन बेल्ट है, मे बी वहाँ पे इसके कारण रीजन होगा या जो भी रीजन होगा, लेकिन यूपी साइड पे डायबिटीज इज वेरी कॉमन इन वेस्टर्न यूपी, बट हरियाणा साइड पे इट इज नॉट एज कॉमन इन जाट्स. तो ये सारा डेटा अवेलेबल है पब्लिक डोमेन में, बट हम इसको देखते नहीं है एज अ इंडस्ट्री टुडे, विच इज वेरी वेरी सरप्राइजिंग. तो हमने फिर डीप जब जाना शुरू किया, वी स्टार्टेड लुकिंग एट एज मच डेटा एज वी कैन. इवेंचुअली देखिए, द प्रोडक्ट हैज टू बिलोंग टू इंश्योरेंस कंपनी, so they will make the product, but because we have very high disclosure rates by customers do not buy a policy, customers buy a future potential claim. तो वो झूठ नहीं बोलते हैं. तो यहाँ पे कोई एजेंट नहीं है जो आपको आके कहता है आप साइन कर दीजिए डेटा मैं भरूंगा. आपको खुद ही डेटा देना पड़ता है, तो आप सही डेटा देते हैं. साथ में we can track lot of your parameters on website or when you talk to the call center. Just to give you an example, which page on the website, how much time you spend, how many times you come back to the website, what time of the day you come. ये सारी चीजें हम ट्रैक करते हैं, and then we can correlate that to your claims behavior. So बहुत ज़्यादा deep data analytics team है हमारे पास. Similarly, when you are talking to call center, we record everything and then we convert into text and run analytic tools over it. Just to give you an example, suppose the customer had not mentioned diabetes, but while they were talking to our call center, they talked about insulin. Why should they talk about insulin? So we can capture these things. And a lot of these data points we can then share with our partners to get incorporated into products. So one of the big wins that we had was a health insurance product where typically customers who come to Policybazaar used to buy 5 lakh cover, 5 lakh sum assured. कम नहीं है, बट 5 लाख में आजकल मेडिकल इन्फ्लेशन के साथ में बहुत कुछ होता भी नहीं है. तो वी वेंट बैक टू कंपनीज एंड वी सेड व्हाट विल इट टेक टू मेक 1 करोड़ कवर. नाउ इंडिया में 1 करोड़ हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस मतलब आप प्रैक्टिकली सेफ हैं. सो व्हेन वी लुक द डेटा, इंश्योरेंस कंपनी से देखिए इंस्टेंस ऑफ सच क्लेम्स विल बी वेरी वेरी लो, सो द कॉस्ट विल बी दिस मच और क्लेम्स विल बी दिस मच फॉर द कंपनी. बट बिकॉज हमारे कस्टमर ने डेटा ठीक से डिस्क्लोज किया था, तो हमारे यहाँ पे क्लेम्स बहुत कम होते हैं कंपेयर टू द ऑफलाइन मार्केट. तो उसके कारण वी कुड गो बैक टू द कंपनीज एंड रिक्वेस्ट देम टू क्रिएट अ प्रोडक्ट ऑफ 1 करोड़ एट द कॉस्ट विच इज सेम एज 5 lakh to 10 lakh rupees cover. This is available only online, and this became a very big differentiation and a moat, as I mentioned earlier. ये प्रोडक्ट बिना मेडिकल के 45 ईयर्स वाले तक लोग ले सकते हैं, और हमारा 15 to 20% वॉल्यूम जो है हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस का इसके थ्रू होने लगा. Similarly, we are working on multiple different concepts with insurance companies in terms of how do you create better products for the customers which suits the right risk that the customer represents. ऐसे ही अगर आप गाड़ी में देखिए, अब कार में कोई आदमी 3000 किलोमीटर चलाता है, कोई आदमी 30,000 किलोमीटर चलाता है, बट प्रीमियम तो आप सेम ही दे रहे हैं. ऐसा तो सुनने में तो गलत लगता है, क्योंकि रिस्क तो 10 गुना हो गया ना जो 30,000 चलाता है. तो somewhere we need to do lot more on the product side as an industry. Similarly, when you look at the buying experience, again, as I mentioned earlier, buying was very offline. अब उसके अंदर आप टेक्नोलॉजी कैसे लाएंगे? So we started looking at different friction points. Now there are things like medical test. Now medical test अभी तक physical होता था, but COVID ने थोड़ा force किया इंडस्ट्री को, and health insurance में now you do not need a medical test which is physical. You can do a telemedical where डॉक्टर विल टॉक टू द कस्टमर एंड डॉक्टर कुछ क्वेश्चन पूछ के ओके कर देगा, एंड सब रिकॉर्डेड लाइन पे होता है. अगर आपने झूठ बोला तो आपको क्लेम वैसे नहीं मिलेगा. नाउ दैट बिकेम अ वेरी बिग चेंज. सिमिलरली कार इंश्योरेंस ब्रेकिंग केस में पहले सर्वेयर आता था ना, सर्वेयर आने से कोऑर्डिनेट करना पड़ता है, हैसल है, कॉस्ट है। वी स्टार्टेड डूइंग वीडियो इंस्पेक्शन ऑफ द कार। ना कस्टमर खुद वीडियो बना के अपलोड करते हैं, बेस्ड ऑन विच द इंश्योरेंस कैन बी गिवन। इनफैक्ट द सॉल्यूशन इज सो गुड दैट अप टू 1 लाख रुपीज क्लेम्स भी उसके बेस पे पे करती है कंपनी। जब यू डोंट नीड अ सर्वे टू कम टू यू, क्लेम्स भी उससे पे हो जाते हैं। लास्टली एज आई मेंशन अबाउट द वैल्यू चेन, क्लेम बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट है हमारा। द क्लेम में डिसीजन तो इंश्योरेंस कंपनी करेगी, बट हैंड होल्डिंग हम कर सकते हैं, एंड वी आर डूइंग व्हाटएवर वी कैन। वी हैव गॉट मोर देन 150 पीपल जस्ट फोकसिंग ऑन दिस फॉर कस्टमर्स। सो ये सारे हमारे लिए धीरे धीरे मोड्स बन जाते हैं। एक चीज और बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होती है ऐसे में, आप जब भी कुछ अपना करने की कोशिश करेंगे, यू विल सी देयर विल बी लॉट ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटीज व्हिच आर एडजेसेंट, एंड समटाइम दोज कैन बिकम डाइवर्जन। तो ये पता होना बहुत जरूरी है कि आप क्या करना चाहते हो, क्या नहीं करना चाहते, और आपका जो डीएनए है कंपनी का वो क्या है। क्योंकि एक बार थोड़ा सक्सेसफुल हो जाते हैं तो आदमी को लगने लगता है कि मैं सब कुछ कर सकता हूँ। भाई देयर आर लॉट ऑफ फैक्टर्स, एंड लक भी बहुत बड़ा पार्ट होता है। आई वुड नॉट से कि लक पार्ट नहीं होता है, आपको राइट टाइम राइट प्लेस होना पड़ता है, बहुत सारी चीजें करनी पड़ती है। तो हमारे केस में हमने देखा कि कुछ चीजें थी, जैसे एक एनआरआई कस्टमर हमारे पास आ रहा था, और जब एनआरआई कस्टमर आ रहा था तो हमने चेक किया को कहाँ से आते हैं सबसे ज्यादा, तो पता चला मिडल ईस्ट से सबसे ज्यादा आते हैं, क्योंकि मिडल ईस्ट में कोई सेटल नहीं होता, सब वापस आ जाते हैं। तो हमने फिर इस चक्कर में एक छोटा सा दुबई ऑफिस खोल के देखा। ऐसे ही कुछ कस्टमर्स कहते थे कि यार हमारे को कॉल सेंटर तो ठीक है, बट कैन वी मीट यू गाइज, स्पेशली इन साउथ इंडिया एंड ईस्ट इंडिया वेयर द लैंग्वेज वाज एन इशू, बिकॉज वी हैड ऑफिसेज इन गुड़गांव एंड मुंबई, एंड yes, you can have some people who can manage different languages, but आप लोकल नहीं है फिर भी। तो लास्ट ईयर हमने एक एक्सपेंशन किया अपने कॉल सेंटर का, एंड वी ओपन चेन्नई, बेंगलोर, कोलकाता। दिस ईयर मोस्ट लाइकली वी आर ओपनिंग हैदराबाद एंड अहमदाबाद एज वेल, वे वी सेड कि आप हमसे अपनी भाषा में बात करिए, एंड इफ रिक्वायर्ड आई कम एंड मीट यू इन योर होम ऑल्सो। नाउ दैट बिकम्स वेरी गुड फॉर द कस्टमर्स ऑल्सो, एंड हमारे लिए भी उसका कन्वर्जन बढ़ रहा है, तो हमारे को भी फायदा हो रहा है। बट अगर हम ये सोचते हैं हम ऑनलाइन ही करेंगे तो हम कभी इस तरफ जाते ही नहीं, एंड आई थिंक इन नेक्स्ट 5 years दिस इज गोइंग टू बी अ वेरी बिग ड्राइवर फॉर अस। सो यू नो इवेंचुअली माइंड में फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी रखना बहुत जरूरी होता है व्हेन यू आर बिल्डिंग समथिंग। इफ आई थिंक अबाउट 3-4 things which anyone who wants to start up should keep in mind. First, the motivation has to be right. The motivation has to be solving a customer problem. Yes, you will get a lot of media attention. Hopefully, you will also make money, but that cannot be the driver. Those are the byproducts. So जब तक आप क्लियर नहीं है अपने माइंड में कि आपको कस्टमर की क्या प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करनी है, कहीं ना कहीं सॉल्यूशन अटक जाएगा। So put customer first always. Second, a lot of times you will be forced to take decisions outside of your comfort zone. अब हम लोगों ने भी पढ़ाई की थी, जैसे अग्रवाल जी ने बोला कि एमबीए किया था मैंने। एमबीए में हमने बहुत कुछ सीखा, लेकिन बहुत कुछ नहीं भी सीखा जो कंपनी चलाने में चल लगता है। बट डिसीजन तो लेने पड़ते हैं, और एज अ फाउंडर डिसीजन आपको ही लेने पड़ेंगे। तो आप 2 लोग 4 लोग से बात तो कर लोगे, कोई एडवाइजर से बात कर लोगे, लेकिन डिसीजन तो आपका है। सो इट्स अ वेरी टफ थिंग, बिकॉज इन सब का कोई राइट आंसर नहीं होता। अगर मैं आपको बोलूं कि किसी बिजनेस ने पिवट किया और पिवट करके वो बहुत अच्छा चल गया, बट दूसरी तरफ देयर वर बिजनेसेस व्हिच स्टेड ऑन एंड नेवर गिव अप, वो भी अच्छे चल गए। तो हर जगह पे जब आपके सामने कोई सिचुएशन आएगी, आपके पास एग्जांपल्स दोनों तरफ के होंगे, बट डिसीजन आपको लेना है। तो ये कैपेबिलिटी आपको अपने अंदर कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ होनी चाहिए कि डिसीजन मेरे को लेना है और मेरे को डिसीजन के साथ फिर जीना है। जैसे जैसे आप टीम बिल्ड करते हैं, आपके पास जिम्मेदारी आती है उस टीम की भी, बिकॉज रियलिटी यही है कि दैट टीम का कैरियर एंड इनफैक्ट इवन देयर फैमिली इज बीइंग रन बिकॉज दे आर वर्किंग विद यू। You have to somewhere be accountable for that. Today, as Policy Bazaar and Paisa Bazaar, we have more than 12,000 employees. whatever decision we take in company will have an impact on their careers and their family life. So you have to be very, very cognizant of this, that it's not you alone now. You have a large family as part of your company, and they're all looking up to you. So, that has to be kept in mind all the time. Other thing I would like to mention is always recognize that founder तो एक होता है, दो होते हैं, लेकिन business बनता है because there is a team. And team को अगर आप opportunity देंगे, if you give them freedom, most of the time they'll surprise you with what they can do. हमें कई बार लगता है हम टीम को बता दें कि exactly आप ये करिए और वैसा ही होना चाहिए. I don't believe in that. I think somewhere you have to trust your team. You have to let them come up with the idea, with the solution, and discuss कर लीजिए. एक बार discuss हो गया, let them execute. The way we manage, we give them a boundary condition. देखो, within this boundary condition, do whatever you want. If you are doing anything outside the boundary condition, come to us. Let's have a discussion. But within boundary condition, full freedom है आपके पास. And eventually, you have to recognize team's effort, not only because of promotions and all, but also because of ESOPs. And, we're very proud to say we are just a 14-year-old company. And as Agarwalji mentioned, we did IPO in last November. So 13.5 साल पुरानी company थी उस time पे. And on the day of IPO, we had 57 people who were more than 10 years with the company. अब ये सोचिए 13.5 साल की कंपनी में 10 साल से ज्यादा रुकने वाले लोग 57 थे, ऑल अक्रॉस, बिल्कुल जूनियर भी थे, सीनियर भी थे. तो कोई तो रीजन है. तो टीम को आप एनेबल करेंगे, टीम को एम्पावर करेंगे, तो यू विल ओनली गेट बेनिफिट आउट ऑफ इट. सेकंड, they should believe that they are part of the company, not as employee but as owner. And ESOPs definitely help, but it's more about giving that environment. हमारे केस में on the day of IPO, we had $70 millionaires, 70. I don't know any company जो इतनी wealth creation कर पाई हो अपने employees के लिए. So कहीं ना कहीं टीम को साथ लेकर चलना और टीम को रिकॉग्नाइज करना is very, very, very critical. Second, there is something I learned in GE, which is called edge. Whether you call it edge or whether you call it hustle, that has to be always there. You cannot be satisfied with the status quo. You always think, how can I disrupt the way things are, including the way we do things. अगर आप अपने सॉल्यूशन से भी खुश हो गए ना, कोई ना कोई आपको डिस्टर्ब कर देगा. So you have to be always in that mindset that how do I keep on evolving? How do I become better on daily basis? And if required, हमने तो अपने यहाँ पे पूरी टीम सेटअप कर रखी थी जिसका काम यही था to figure out ways how to disrupt ourselves. उससे कई चीजें निकल के आई. As I mentioned about the physical experiment that we do is part of that. But you can never sit idle with the solution. So यही कुछ चीजें हैं. I think अगर आप ये सारी चीजें देखेंगे, कोई भी सॉल्यूशन बना रहे हो आप, किसी भी स्पेस में बनाने की सोचें, it doesn't matter. India is a great place to be. अपॉर्चुनिटी जितनी यहाँ पर है उतनी दुनिया में कहीं नहीं है. आपके पास इतनी बड़ी एक ऑलरेडी मार्केट बनी हुई है, इतनी सारी पॉपुलेशन है, हमारी कंजम्पशन स्टोरी हमारी बिल्ड हो रही है. समवेयर अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन बहुत ज़्यादा हो चुकी है पहले के मुकाबले. यंग कस्टमर बहुत ज़्यादा है और यंग कस्टमर रिसर्च करना चाहता है. पहले यंग कस्टमर जो पुरानी एज ओल्ड रिलेशनशिप थी केवल उनके ऊपर डिपेंडेंट नहीं है. यंग कस्टमर कहता है मेरे को पता होना चाहिए वेयर माय मनी इज गोइंग एंड आई वांट टू बी इन कंट्रोल. सो इट्स अ बेस्ट प्लेस टू डू अ स्टार्टअप दीज डेज. इनेबलिंग एनवायरनमेंट बहुत अच्छा है, कैपिटल अवेलेबिलिटी भी है, यंग लोग बहुत सारे हैं जो यंग स्टार्टअप्स में आना चाहते हैं. अब 2008 when we started off, at that time hiring a very good person would be very tough, but today the environment has changed a lot. A lot of young people want to work with young companies or startups. The learning curve is immense. जब आप बड़ी कंपनी में होते हैं, large company will give you a lot of structure, it will teach you a lot about process, lot about control, but a startup will teach you a lot about execution, moving very, very fast, having flexible mindset, doing things which are outside of your job profile. Otherwise, job profile लिखा होता है ये करना है तो आप इतना ही करते हैं. स्टार्टअप में वो चॉइस नहीं होती है. जरूरत पड़ेगी, गार्ड नहीं आया तो आप गार्ड का काम भी करेंगे, लाइट भी ऑन करेंगे, फ्लोर की सब कुछ करेंगे, क्योंकि आपकी अपनी कंपनी है, आपको ओनरशिप होती है. सो आई थिंक मेरा तो बस यही मैसेज होगा कि as young people who are going to take this country forward, do think of creating jobs and not just doing jobs. Creating jobs will add a lot more value to yourself, to the country, and there's so much opportunity to do in every space that you will feel that you have spent your next 5 years, 10 years in a worthwhile manner. So all the very best, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much, Alokji, for this wonderful message. I think you have covered all the aspects, the very successful story of Policy Bazaar, how from the scratch, where nobody had any knowledge of the finance sector. Nobody had any knowledge of this insurance. Even the people were not knowing what is the diabetes. So that's really something great. So I think that gives a very good message that let us see how we can go for the value proposition, how we can go for the prioritization of the customer first, and how to have this lead generation model, many things. And especially like in agriculture field, I can just tell you, we have 74 agriculture universities, we have 120 institutes, we have every institute, whatever you can think of, whether it's animal science, veterinary science, fishery science, horticulture science. And a lot of our youngsters, they are now getting attracted towards the entrepreneurs. We have the agribusiness diploma courses, management courses, and PG diplomas, many things we are opening. But still somewhere these students lack some kind of motivation. And I can just summarize your talk by saying that it is ultimately nothing else but the passion. If we have the passion, anything which comes in your way can be resolved. So first, let us be passionate. Let us just decide that, yes, I want to do it. Automatically, slowly, people will just come and connect with you and can really support you. And especially in the last, the message which you have given that what kind of things are required to open a company and what kind of points one should keep in mind, like the motivation for solving customer problems. That's really very important. Teamwork is very important, and employees should feel like the ownership of the company. Yes, I fully agree. And our students are really coming out with many solutions for the startups. Many banks are coming forward, like NABARD has come in a big way. Today I am in Hyderabad. There also we are discussing how we can collaborate with many other ventures. The government schemes are there for the startups. We are opening many incubation centers to have more and more messages, more and more collaborations for this. Because ultimately, the future lies in the hands of the youngsters. So if our youngsters are not ready to take up the challenges, I don't think the challenge which we have got in the future for the food, nutrition can never be resolved. We are not requiring the food, we are requiring nutrition now.
Yeah.
So what is the requirement of the population? Everything is sinking. Your land is sinking. Your climate change is there. Soil is degraded. Everything is, but the population is increasing, and the requirement is changing. Food is getting diversified. And they want more and more protein rich. They are more health conscious, diabetes conscious. So a lot of things is full of challenges. So I think for that, a lot of entrepreneurship we require in different dimensions, and a lot of things are really, really desired. And I'm happy to share with all of you that wherever I go in universities, the youngsters, especially the girl students, which are now almost 50%. Earlier it was 23%, and they are so anxious and they are so curious and so much motivated to open their own business, own startups, small entrepreneurs. And I think everything has to start from some small thing only, small interventions. Before I propose thanks, let us take few questions Dr. Gurinder Randhawa, can you unmute? She's a principal scientist and head in National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources. Ankit, can you just give her permission to speak?
Which one, sir?
Gurinder Randhawa. You see on the screen, she is with the video.
Yes. First of all, I'll thank our Honorable Deputy Director General Dr. Agarwal for bringing Shri Alok Bansal ji in front of us. You really inspired me. I keep listening most of the talks, but this talk is so different and so out of the box. Dr. Bansal, Mr. Bansal, we are always knowing that people are exceedingly doing well in startups. But now today we are in front of somebody who has success to share with us despite having so many hurdles. So the message which we all are taking home back is enabling environment, trusting the team, and bringing the youngsters along with us, which are having so many innovative ideas and they have out-of-box thinking. And above all, which really impressed me, that customer first. You know, normally when we start doing, we have a kind of mindset that like startup means to make some profit or something. But you have rightly mentioned that if we can have that kind of mindset and we can inculcate in our youngsters that customer first, what are the needs? Who is the stakeholder? I'm really very overjoyed with your presentation.
Thank you, Gurinder, madam. And once again, congratulations to you for your son's success. He got 10th rank in the UPSC exam. So, heartiest congratulations. Can you just give permission to Dr. Inderjeet Singh? He is the Vice Chancellor of Guru Angad Dev Veterinary University in Ludhiana.
Sir, my request is that the youngsters, when they want to start anything, they don't have the capital. And they find it very difficult to find any angel investor. So can you suggest something how they should identify some angel investor and approach the angel investor for putting his or her money into that enterprise?
Sure. See, there are two things, sir, here. First, not every venture requires huge amount of investment. If I look at just the agricultural space, I know few companies which are started off in last many years. One of my batchmates started a company which was in food processing, which required little bit of investment. But the other person started a company which is into farm to retail. Actually, first it used to be farm to retail seller. Now it's to home also. So this is creating an enabling environment. They are not really buying anything on their own. So there's no inventory, there's no capex required. Similarly, a senior of mine is running a company called Farm Didi. Now that again is something where they're going to small places, getting the local person involved, and getting them to make some final product out of the agriculture product itself. I know people who are doing this for Kumaon, for Himachal Pradesh, where they're saying, okay, we want to support our native places. We are procuring from there, we'll sell it in the world. They're setting up their companies in UK, they're setting up in Delhi, everywhere. So not every business requires huge amount of investment. That's the first thing. Second, when it comes to funding, there are government schemes, as Dr. Agarwal mentioned earlier, especially in food tech. There are a lot of government subsidies and schemes available. A lot of CAs will know about these things. I'm not an expert in this space. Second, if you want to take angel investment, there are a lot of platforms now where you can raise between, say, 50 lakh rupees to 3 crore rupees at the idea stage itself. But you have to have a very, very good idea, presentation, and a team in place by then. Because anyone who's putting money, see, they are putting money because they anticipate that money to come back in multiple ways over years, right? So you have to convince them that this is something which has a high chance of success and their money will double, triple, or whatever. There are also another way to raise money, which is typically with the venture debt. Now, venture debt is a very small part, but again, as Dr. Agarwal mentioned, NABARD is doing something. SIDBI is also doing a lot of stuff in that side, where you can get either venture debt or early stage funding. SIDBI actually has got a proper, I think, angel fund now also. Lastly, a lot of times, this is something which is totally overlooked by the companies. You can get some funding from your partners. When I say partners, these can be your suppliers who can extend working capital for you, or who can even become part of your company by investing into equity. A lot of people think that whenever we talk of equity, we have to go to angel investors or we have to go to funds. No, your partners are your biggest support. And if they can give you some runway, why not? And they will also sort of buy into your success because of that. So there are multiple ways. Getting early stage money is not as easy, but I don't think that is something which will stop people from starting off. Having a business model which requires a huge amount of burn upfront is, not looked at very kindly these days. Say till last year, funding environment was very different. But right now, if someone goes out in the market to raise money saying that, okay, I want to burn 20 crores in the first year itself, chances are you will not get funded. So people have to rethink that how do you survive? And as I mentioned in my talk, we found a way to survive by doing lead generation. So you have to find ways of how do you keep your cost down. You have to be very, very stingy. The salaries that the team got, the salaries that the founders got in first few years in our company was very, very low. Even today, our offices are very, very bare bone offices. The lift bhi chalegi nahi chalegi, mujhe nahi pata chalta roz aana. Matlab, hum why to invest into such stuff? We continue to be very, very frugal even today when we have a lot of money in the bank. So वो एक DNA बन जाता है कंपनी में. तो I think funding best तरीका होगा अपने supplier से बात करना, अपने friends family से बात करना, but keep it very, very small.
Yeah. If you allow, Alokji, there is one comment, question in the chat box.
Haji.
Dr. S.P. Singh is trying to ask something. Why success is measured only on the basis of profit? And then further, is there a moral or social ground for the startups? And then why there is difference between advertisement and actual premiums differing for rich and poor? Does Policy Bazaar working for CSR? Can the cost of premium be added with the donations? And how IRCTC and nationalized banks manage their profit from IRCTC tickets and bank accounts?
Okay.
So I think this is
lot of questions. Let me try and answer one by one. I can see the chat box, so let me take the first one. See, eventually, if you have a business venture, there's a moral responsibility to make profit. Because, eventually, if there is no profit in the venture, then it's not a venture. It's not a business venture, technically.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of social entrepreneurs and there's a lot of social startups as well. I don't call them NGOs. They are actually doing something which has a lot more impact on the society, and the focus is the impact rather than the profit making. Now, we are lucky to be in a space where profit and social impact goes hand in hand for us. Because, whenever any family has to go through a claim and they manage to survive and manage their lifestyle because they had that insurance policy in place, you feel that you've done something good. I keep on telling the team that outside of healthcare and education, what we do has biggest impact on families. But as a business venture, if you're not going for profit, there is something wrong, because you also have different stakeholders in terms of your shareholders, in terms of your employees who are looking up to you. Now, most of the companies will try to do something on the impact side these days. Early stage is very tough, but people do it in their own style, in small way. Like, I can give example from what we used to do. We will try and do a blood donation drive at least once a year. Now, that's a very small thing, but since we have large staff, we could collect some 2,000, 3,000 units of blood in that blood donation drive, which is a very big thing. And we normally use it to do it through Rotary. So, they will actually ensure that it reaches to the right people. When COVID struck, we all know there was a government helpline called 1075. there was a time that 100% of 1075 was managed by us pro bono. We didn't even charge even a single money to Ministry of Health. We had a lot of staff in Paisa-Bazar, and in Paisa-Bazar side, we suddenly had a lot of supply issues in the first wave of COVID. I'm talking about 2020. And since we have these excess people in that company, we reached out to Niti Aayog and then through Niti Aayog to Ministry of Health, and ran that for about 3-4 months. Now, a lot of these things everyone does. Some people will advertise, some people talk about it, but a lot of organizations will not even talk about it. Companies like us need to have a CSR budget because now we are listed. But in our case, when we talk about CSR, we talk about mostly financial literacy or trying to get insurance for the underprivileged, those sort of things. Because that is very closely linked to what we do. I think financial literacy is a subject which we should all get taught while we are in school or while we are studying in colleges. Financial planning na karna aana is like a sin to your family. And somewhere life skills of financial planning हमारे को सिखाई नहीं जाती है कॉलेजों में. इनफैक्ट कम्युनिकेशन, ये 3 चीजें मेरे को बहुत पेट है मेरे लिए कि ये 3 चीजें क्यों नहीं सिखाई जाती कॉलेजों में हमारे को. So we have a CSR budget. Last year, I mean 2-3 साल से तो हम कर ही रहे हैं. We also contribute to PM CARES Fund and Chief Minister Fund in Haryana because we are based out of Gurgaon. But उसके अलावा कुछ चीजें और करते हैं. We are working with some NGO to make young adults ready for job. So Haryana mein there is an NGO through which we work where last year I think 1 lakh people, kids got trained to become job worthy. उनमें से कुछ को शायद हम hire भी कर पाएंगे. Now coming to the cost of premium we added to donations, I am not sure because donations का जो concept है वो government ने काफी clear define कर रखा है कि किस चीज को गिना जाएगा किस चीज को नहीं गिना जाएगा. तो उसके बारे में मेरे को इतना आइडिया नहीं. We'll have to check on this one with some CA. IRCTC and nationalized bank manage their profit. Because the IRCTC and the case में तो specifically they have a monopoly, so they make money by 2 ways. One, there is a small markup that they can charge for every ticket when it's sold online. But it's government organization, तो उनको शायद जरूरत भी ना हो उसकी. But they also auction their website space. So when you advertise on IRCTC, you have to pay a lot, and that itself can cover a lot of their cost. Nationalized banks का मुझे idea नहीं होगा, sorry, I won't be able to help there. So I hope I have answered these questions from Dr. Singh.
Thank you very much. There is another question, but I think because of paucity of time now, you will not be able to take further questions. There's a question by Dr. Vijay Arora, MHU Karnal. I don't know whether you have time to respond to this or we can just...
In agriculture, there is good scope of startups, particularly post-harvest technology value addition. No, I think that's a very, very valid, suggestion by Dr. Vijay Arora. There is huge amount of scope. See, हमने तो कहीं पढ़ाई था ये मैनेजमेंट कॉलेजों में कि आलू अगर 20 रुपए किलो बिकता है तो फ्राइज बनने के बाद 200 रुपए किलो हो जाता है, चिप्स बनने के बाद शायद 2000 रुपए किलो हो जाता है. वैल्यू एडिशन तो बहुत है. एंड लॉट ऑफ दीज आई थिंक MSME सेक्टर में तो होता है, बट ऑर्गेनाइज तरीके से नहीं हो पा रहा है. बट ऑन द अदर हैंड, इफ यू लुक एट सक्सेस स्टोरी ऑफ समथिंग लाइक लिज्जत पापड़, इट्स समथिंग वी कैन ऑल लर्न फ्रॉम. कि कैसे लिज्जत पापड़ एक ग्राउंड से उठ के कंपनी बनी थी. Similarly, if you travel to any place, every place has their own local brands. कहीं कोई अचार का ब्रांड बन जाता है, कहीं कोई माउथ फ्रेशनर्स का ब्रांड बना हुआ है, but somewhere they are not able to take it to the next level. Now, उसके लिए typically what I have seen is someone will have to take those calls, because देखो, what I understood is, as I mentioned about DNA of the organization, a lot of physical businesses do not have the DNA of spending without getting return right away. But when you try to build a business, you typically have to go to an investment curve. And if you try to reach pan India, that investment curve will be very deep. Now, whether you have that money, whether you have that thinking, that is something which is very important. you may have seen in Delhi, Connaught Place, there used to be a dairy called Caventer's. They always had only one Caventer's in Delhi, nothing else. But last 5-7 years, suddenly you have so many Caventer's every mall. So वो उनकी सेकंड जनरेशन में वापस आई पढ़ पढ़ा के, उन्होंने कहा कि इसको आगे कैसे बढ़ाया जाए. And then they started thinking about creating a franchisee model out of it. So, there is lots and lots which can be done. And I think if you look at agri products, it's much more than just food. See, I am also a textile engineer for, as my undergrad. And textile itself is very closely linked to agriculture. And there's so much stuff that can be done. I know about a company which is doing a lot of research in the genome technologies for agriculture. So scope to bahut hai. It just, people need to come out of the comfort zone and say, I will take this call and I will put life 5-7 years, 10 years into this. Now, reality yahi hai ki there is a high risk, it will not work. But if someone is not ready to take that call, how will you know it will work or not work?
Thank you, Alokji, for responding to this. And I can just tell you that in our big network, which is world's biggest, I can say, network, having 120 institutes, having 750 Krishi Vigyan Kendra, every district, having so many universities, having 95 subjects, MSc, having 2 lakh students, so much. Now, I have found that out of the 900 startups, agri startups which have come up, most of the startups, they belong to the non-agriculturists. Software engineers and the other persons, they are coming. So somewhere we can find the gap, and that gap is that the students at their education level, they are somehow end-to-end solutions, they are not aware. And that's what we have to now plan. And maybe from this talk, students can be really greatly benefited and can come out in a big way to have their own businesses, entrepreneurs, startups, whatever they want to do, so that they don't become the job seekers, they become the job providers. Like you told, you have, I think, more than 12,000 employees.
That's right.
Yeah, so employing so many persons. So I think that's what is required from our young generation. And I thank all my viewers who are eminent vice chancellors, directors, our deputy director generals, many senior persons, and especially the students who are connected to the live streaming for attending this talk. And I'm sure that they will be benefited. And ultimately, I thank you, Alokji, for sparing so much time. I know you have a very busy schedule, but still you could give the very important tips to our students. And in the last, I would like to just ask you, can you just give in one line a message to our young students that they should go for this entrepreneurship, and what is the mool mantra to become a successful entrepreneur?
Never have plan B. If you have a plan B, plan A will not work. Just करना है तो करना है, जुनून के साथ शुरू रहो. And solutions बनते चले जाएंगे. If you try to have all the answer day one, वो कभी नहीं होता. हमारे पास आज भी आंसर नहीं है. So किसको पता है क्या होगा? But if you think that you have anything in you to actually contribute, just take a jump.
No. Thank you. And to my viewers, next lecture we have on Friday, and that lecture is by none other than Daji, which we call, he's a great motivator, and he has these centers in 150 countries, and he has a global headquarters in Hyderabad, having 1,200 acres of land, and he has converted that barren land into the total agricultural land, rainforest, tissue culture laboratory, everything, whatever you can think of. Best model I have ever seen, where the soil which was not productive at all. So he's going to give a talk on Friday at 11:30. So please connect for that lecture. And thank you very much, Alokji. Once again, thanks all my viewers for connecting to this. Thank you and namaskar.
For having me here. Namaskar. Bye-bye.